When you step up to our torches, what you need to know is, first of all, we use propane and oxygen, and there is a specific smell. It's a garlic kind of rotten egg smell. Now that smell is added, it is not naturally in propane, but it's added in order to make sure that if there is a leak, you are notified. So if you smell propane smell, you need to notify somebody. We might have a gas leak, and we need to be able to repair it. If you are at home, you need to notify the gas company. It's really important that you understand that if there is a gas leak in the classroom or at home, it can actually cause a very large explosion and it can have deadly consequences. So you need to know that part first. Now the second part is when you step up to any torch, you want to check yourself as always. And that means if you have anything dangling, you might want to tuck it away. You want to make sure that you have closed-toed shoes, especially considering these torches are used to have molten glass that we would be working with. Now that we are personally ready to be able to work with the torches, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the torches on. So we're going to start at the regulators. So we do yellow handles up. Doesn't really matter for us which yellow handle, which side we do first. So we have molten glass. But we are going to take special note that the red right here, that is indicating that that is the propane. I always say pink propane just to kind of give you a visual, but it's red, I know. And so we would do this one. And then with our propane in this class, we're going to turn our regulator up to 5. So we turn the little dial clockwise in order to turn it up to 5. And that is the appropriate PSI. And then with our oxygen, again, green is for oxygen. Think of like air, something healthy. And then we're going to turn on our regulators. So we would have our regulators on, and then what that does for us is it is going to prepare our torches. So now the fuel has come from outside where our tanks are to our regulators, and now that we've opened the regulators, now the fuel goes all the way up to our handset here. Now, when we are turning on a handset, now we have to be very specific the way that we turn it on and off. And so we use the acronym POOP, and so that would be POOP, which would be stand for propane, oxygen, oxygen, propane. And so when we turn it on, we start with the propane, and then we would strike our fuel. So we turn on the propane, we would strike our fuel, and then we would get a flame. Once we have the flame, then we would turn on our oxygen. We never want oxygen in the head of the torch when we're turning it on. So we always turn the oxygen on after our propane is lit. And then we would be able to use the torches for, melting glass. When we were finally done with the beads that we would be making, what we would do is we would then turn it off. But when we turn it off in the opposite order that we had turned it on. So we would turn it off using our oxygen first and then our propane second. So now that the torches would be turned off, what we need to do is we need to bleed the lines. There's still fuel in this lines, and we do not want to leave excess fuel in a line. So what we would do is we would put our yellow handles down, and then we would back up our regulators. Now, you would back up both regulators, obviously, but you can see that the numbers did not go down, and on this one, the numbers wouldn't go down either. And so what you have to do in order to get the fuel out of the line is you actually have to crack open your line one more time. And then what happens is when you do that, the fuel will leave the line, and then you lightly tighten them back up. Now, it is important for you to understand that when you are lighting a torch, you would only ever light it with a striker, something like this. If you were to use an actual lighter, what happens is, well, generally we're not very kind to our lighters, and we put them in our pocket and they hang out with our change and our keys and everything else. And so lighters often develop a leak, and they just slowly release fuel, and we never notice because it's only just a small amount. But if you were to use a lighter when you were striking that propane, what happens is you get a flame, and that small leak can actually be lit that you had in your lighter could be lit by the flame that you just created. And so you can get a secondary explosion, and you do not want to have that secondary explosion. So you always want to make sure that you're only using a striker and never a lighter when working with different fuels and torches. So that is how we work with our torches. That is how we turn them on and off.